Right now, we've got these tech giants building artificial intelligence that can, simulate deep human emotion and supposedly cure complex diseases.
Right, which sounds amazing.
Yeah, it totally feels like we're living in the future. But the reality behind the curtain is, well, it's a little less glamorous.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're building that future on an electrical grid that is literally buckling under the strain. And they're using software foundations coded 15 years ago, relying on hardware manufacturing techniques that honestly haven't changed since the Cold War.
It is the ultimate contradiction of our time. I mean, really. We are trying to outrun physics, and physics is finally pulling us over.
Totally. Well, today is Wednesday, July 15, 2026. Welcome to this deep dive into today's daily briefing sources. We're tracking some massive global shifts today across energy, policy, technology, and culture.
Lots of ground to cover.
For sure. Our mission today is to explore a very specific phenomenon playing out all over the world. Basically, what happens when a society that is completely obsessed with hypergrowth is suddenly forced to just hit the pause button.
Right, a hard stop.
Exactly. And more importantly, we want to figure out why slowing down might actually be creating the space for some of the most remarkable breakthroughs of our generation. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We have this tendency to think of the digital world as, weightless. We talk about the cloud as if it's just magic floating up in the sky.
I mean, we literally call it the cloud.
Right. But today's sources are flashing this massive warning sign for you. They show just how tethered our digital ambitions really are to physical power and, global energy markets.
Because the cloud is essentially just someone else's massive warehouse of computers.
Yeah.
And those computers require staggering amounts of physical energy, not just to run the processors, but to keep the hardware from literally melting down.
Which brings us to the first major friction point in the briefing. Let's look at the geopolitical choke point first.
Okay.
The U.S. military has just reimposed a naval blockade on Iranian ports. The stated goal here is to stop attacks on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
A huge deal for global trade.
Huge. And Tehran immediately responded by threatening to halt all Middle East energy exports. So oil prices instantly spiked by 2% as traders, priced in a massive supply disruption.
Right. So we have this very traditional, heavy industrial era anxiety about energy scarcity playing out.
Exactly. But then I read the next item in our briefing, and we are seeing the exact same anxiety in the tech sector. New York Governor Kathy Hochul just signed a first-in-the-nation executive order.
Oh, the data center thing.
Yes. She placed a one-year moratorium on the construction of massive new AI data centers.
A full, illegally mandated pause on AI infrastructure, and in New York, which is one of the most important economic hubs in the world.
And the justification she gave is just fascinating. The breakneck pace of AI growth is severely straining New York's power grid. It's drawing so much power that it's literally driving up electricity costs for everyday residents.
Wow.
Yeah, if you live in New York, you might actually see your utility bill go up this month just because a tech company upstate is, training a new language model.
That is wild.
It makes me think about the AI industry as, imagine someone trying to run a massive state-of-the-art supercomputer, but they're plugging it into a single shared extension cord in a crowded dorm room.
And eventually you just trip the breaker for the entire floor.
Exactly. I mean, are we looking at a scenario where the AI bubble pops, not because we run out of innovative algorithms, but just because we physically cannot generate enough electricity to keep the servers turned on?
What's fascinating here is the direct, undeniable parallel between the Strait of Hormuz and the New York power grid.
Oh, how so?
Well, we're talking about choke points. When we look at how an AI data center operates, the mechanism is incredibly resource intensive. Training a large language model requires thousands of GPUs running at maximum capacity for months.
Right, just drawing power nonstop.
And that generates an enormous amount of heat, which means you need industrial-scale water and HVAC systems just to cool the building.
So the physical footprint of our digital ambition is no longer theoretical.
Exactly. It's a tangible liability. When an AI project starts threatening the baseline stability of a state's power grid and raising heating bills for ordinary citizens, governments really have no choice but to step in and pull the emergency brake.
So the physical infrastructure is stressed to the breaking point. But reading further into the sources, I noticed that human systems are hitting that exact same breaker switch.
Yeah, that was a huge theme today.
Institutions are cracking under the pressure to perform at digital speeds, and they're basically being forced into a hard reset.
Because When a system optimizes purely for speed and volume, the people operating inside that system inevitably begin to fracture.
Right. We have two highly contrasting examples of this today. The first is in education. New York City Public Schools, which, by the way, is the largest school district in the United States, have temporarily paused all new tech and software purchases.
A massive freeze.
Yeah, Chancellor Kumar Samuels directed this freeze following a major backlash over the rapid, completely unvetted adoption of AI tools in classrooms.
They just pushed them out too fast.
Exactly. So they're hitting the brakes to stop and finalize actual guidance.
Which sends a total shockwave through the entire edtech vendor landscape. You have a massive market abruptly closing its doors because the pace of adoption outstripped the capacity for oversight.
Totally. And then we see an entirely different institution taking a similar pause for the same underlying reason.
The ICE story.
Yeah, the briefing notes that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has been ordered to pause most non-urgent vehicle stops. This is a major policy shift.
Right.
It follows two fatal shootings in Maine and Texas involving men who were not the original targets of the enforcement operations. Officials cited intense pressure on field agents to increase arrest numbers as a contributing factor to the breakdown in operational protocol.
So quota pressures were driving the speed.
Basically, yeah. And as part of this course correction, the agency is now expanding the use of body cameras.
We are definitely seeing a common denominator here.
I want to push back on this a bit, though, because it's incredibly easy to look at a school district freezing purchases or a massive federal agency pausing operations and just dismiss it as, bureaucratic red tape.
Sure, people always complain about red tape.
Right. If we're trying to solve complex problems, doesn't innovation require us to push boundaries? I mean, the old Silicon Valley mantra was move fast and break things.
Yeah, classic tech mindset.
If you pause education tech, kids might fall behind the curve. If you pause field enforcement, systems might back up. Isn't pausing just a luxury that these massive institutions can't actually afford?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the move fast and break things philosophy is designed for software iteration. It is fundamentally disastrous for critical human infrastructure.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Let's look at the mechanisms in both examples. In the New York classrooms, you had unvetted AI tools being deployed directly to students without anyone actually understanding the pedagogical impact or the data privacy risks.
Right, they just wanted the newest shiny tool.
Exactly. And in the field of ICE, you had a quota-driven system demanding higher arrest numbers, which degraded the time agents had to properly vet targets or just de-escalate situations.
Yeah, speed over safety.
Both represent systems optimized for speed and metrics over safety and efficacy. A systemic pause isn't bureaucratic red tape. It is an institutional survival mechanism.
Wow, an institutional survival mechanism.
Yeah, when a system is under that much stress, pausing to recalibrate, whether that means implementing body cameras or writing AI privacy guidelines, is really the only way to prevent a catastrophic systemic collapse.
That reframes entirely for me. The pause is the only thing keeping the system alive. But while these giant institutions have the authority to call a timeout and save themselves, everyday people are getting severe whiplash.
Oh, absolutely.
We're grappling with how deeply technology has infiltrated personal culture, our emotional relationships, and even our basic concept of ownership.
We are entering an era where the things we interact with most intimately are the things we have the least control over.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the regulatory shock in China today. They just enacted a first-of-its-kind national law regulating emotionally interactive AI.
Regulating AI companions, essentially.
Yeah, the government cited severe psychological concerns, particularly regarding youth developing these deep parasocial relationships with algorithms. Because of this law, platforms like ByteDance's Dubao and Alibaba's Qwen had to simultaneously shut down their AI companion features.
Just overnight.
The immediate real-world result was that millions of users woke up and instantly lost access to personalized chat histories and digital companions they had spent months interacting with.
The psychological whiplash of that is profound. You have a genuine emotional bond, cultivated daily, that is abruptly severed overnight by a simple compliance update.
And then you look at the gaming world in the West, and we are seeing a parallel anxiety over ownership. Sony just announced that by January 2028, PlayStation will end all physical disc production for new games.
So no more physical copies.
Zero. They are shifting entirely to a digital storefront, and gamers are intensely debating what this means for preservation. When you buy a digital game, you don't actually own a copy. You just own a license to play it on their server.
Right, which they can revoke.
So we're losing physical ownership of our media with PlayStation, But we are also seeing people lose their digital friends in China at the stroke of a regulatory pen.
Both of these scenarios totally strip away the illusion of control.
Yeah, and to layer on top of this feeling of digital fragility, consider today's date, July 15th, 2026. It marks exactly 20 years since the first public tweets went out on Twitter, now X.
20 years. That's a long time in tech.
2 decades of digital culture. And the power of that culture is currently dominating the globe today because England is playing Argentina in the World Cup semifinal.
Oh, right, with Spain already waiting in the final.
Yep. And ahead of the match, England captain Harry Kane posted a brief 6-word tweet that has gone massively viral. Millions of fans are dissecting those 6 words, looking for psychological hints about the team's mindset.
It's crazy how much weight we put on a few words online.
It is. We have spent 20 years building an entirely digital culture, pouring our collective energy into platforms like this. But if our video games can disappear when a server shuts down, and our AI companions can vanish overnight due to a new law, who actually owns our digital lives?
This raises an important question about digital permanence. What we're seeing in China with the AI companions and in the West with the PlayStation discs is the exact same underlying anxiety.
The fear of losing it all.
Exactly. It's the unsettling collective realization that in a digital-only future, we are not owners. We are merely renters. We rent our media, we rent our cultural experiences, and increasingly, we rent our relationships.
Man, that is bleak.
And when you are just a renter on someone else's server, you can be evicted from your own digital life without any warning.
Evicted from your own digital life. That is an incredibly sobering way to look at it. So if our digital lives are the center of modern existence, yet they are this fragile and out of our control, how do we secure them?
That's the million-dollar question.
Ironically, today's sources suggest that protecting our cutting-edge future requires looking backward at the deeply foundational, honestly boring elements of infrastructure that we have totally neglected.
Because the flashy consumer technology gets all the attention, but the invisible subterranean plumbing is what actually keeps society from falling apart.
Okay, let's talk about that plumbing, specifically cybersecurity. Microsoft just dropped their July Patch Tuesday update, and they had to patch a record-breaking 570 security flaws
570.
in a single month. They are now allowing enterprise users to defer updates for up to 35 days just so IT departments can manage the sheer volume of code they have to fix.
It's just a flood of vulnerabilities.
And meanwhile, SonicWall is warning of 2 actively exploited zero-day vulnerabilities in their edge appliances. One of those flaws literally allows an attacker to execute admin-level commands.
And we should clarify why that matters. Edge appliances are essentially the front door security guards of a corporate network.
Okay.
They sit right on the perimeter. So if a hostile actor can execute admin commands on the edge appliance, they don't just compromise a single computer. They own the entire network infrastructure behind it.
Which makes this next story from the briefing feel like a massive sigh of relief. Security researchers just earned a $92,000 bounty from Google for discovering and fixing a Linux kernel root vulnerability known as GhostLock.
Good for them, but what's the catch?
The catch is that bug had been sitting in the foundational code for 15 years.
15 years? I mean, think about how many trillions of dollars of global commerce, how many hospital networks, and how many critical supply chains have been built on top of a vulnerability that is older than the iPhone.
It's terrifying. How does that even happen?
It happens because open source foundational code is often maintained by volunteers. And the tech industry focuses its capital on building new, shiny applications rather than auditing the basement.
Right, nobody wants to pay to fix the basement. We're seeing this desperate need to upgrade the basement in the physical world too, by the way.
Oh, the aerospace story.
Yeah. Jordan Black, a former SpaceX engineer, just raised $65 million for a startup called Senra Systems. Their entire mission is to modernize aerospace wire harness manufacturing.
Just the wires.
Yeah, we're talking about the physical bundles, the copper wire, that act as the nervous system for rockets. Black points out that this industry is basically unchanged since the Cold War. Everything is still hand-crimped and manually bundled.
Which is astonishing, honestly. We are designing these hyper-advanced, reusable, autonomous rockets, but their internal nervous systems are being built using the exact same manual labor techniques used during the Apollo missions.
Why haven't they updated it?
Primarily because the regulatory certification process for aerospace makes it incredibly difficult to change legacy manufacturing methods. It's safer to just stick with what worked in the 60s.
Wow. There is one more example from the briefing that beautifully illustrates this need to return to basics, this time in education.
What's that one?
A new study by veteran educator Carol Jago shows that having students analyze traditional physical visual art significantly improves their reading comprehension.
Really? Art helps with reading.
Yeah. By looking closely at a painting and inferring what is happening, students build the exact cognitive mapping skills they need to parse complex texts and boost their overall literacy.
That's amazing.
So, putting all this together, I look at modern society right now, and it feels like someone trying to build a state-of-the-art smart home on a foundation of rotting 15-year-old wood. We are obsessing over hyper-advanced AI, but we are relying on 15-year-old bugs and Linux and Cold War-era wire harnesses. Are we just building a digital civilization on sand?
The inescapable reality is that boring is vital. True intelligence, true security, and true progress require mastering the analog basics.
The plumbing, basically.
Exactly. Whether that means painstakingly auditing and patching edge network devices, or modernizing the physical copper wire bundles that keep a rocket from exploding, or teaching kids fundamental cognitive inference skills through a classic painting rather than just handing them an iPad.
Right.
These are not the technologies that go viral on social media, but they are the foundational layer. If the foundation is unstable, the house will eventually collapse, no matter how intelligent the software running inside it happens to be.
Boring is vital. And that actually brings us to the most optimistic theme in today's briefing. Because when we finally take the time to address those fundamentals, when we manage the speed, fix the foundations, and stop trying to just break things, we unlock incredible, sustainable progress.
The good kind of progress.
Exactly. The kind of progress that doesn't usually make the front page, but fundamentally alters the trajectory of humanity.
These are the quiet wins that scale over time.
Yes. For example, investment in AI drug discovery has just surged past $2 billion. But they aren't using AI to generate chat companions. They are using it for biomarker identification and optimizing clinical trials.
A much better use case.
Right. By mapping out how proteins fold and predicting which compounds will fail before they even reach human testing, they are cutting drug development timelines by 70%.
Yeah.
And they're drastically improving clinical trial success rates.
That metric is life-altering. Cutting development time by 70% means getting life-saving therapeutics to patients years earlier, while simultaneously reducing the billions of dollars wasted on dead-end trials.
And the quiet wins extend to the environment, too. India just hit a massive green infrastructure milestone. 104 airports across the country are now powered entirely by renewable energy, largely utilizing massive new solar arrays.
Over 100 airports, that's huge.
It is. And the briefing ended with a roundup of these slow-moving environmental victories. We've got solar-powered railways expanding, new uses for carbon-capturing fungi, fresh global crackdowns on forever chemicals. My personal favorite detail? Those storks are actually returning to villages they had abandoned decades ago because the local water ecosystems are finally recovering.
I love that. It is incredibly easy to overlook stories about returning storks or incremental solar deployments when the headlines are dominated by naval blockades and crashing grids.
So what does this all mean? When we consume the news, the loudest stories, the energy choke points, the systems straining under pressure, they are inherently terrifying. But the quiet news, hidden in the back of the briefing, is profoundly optimistic.
It really is.
Is it possible that the real story of our era isn't the loud, sudden crises, but these boring, slow-moving infrastructure wins that we barely even notice?
I firmly believe that is the real story. When you look at successfully scaling solar power to over 100 airports, or fundamentally accelerating medical discovery by 70%, that acts like compounding interest for humanity.
Compounding interest, I like that.
Yeah, these are not flashy overnight success stories fueled by a frantic rush to market. They are the exact opposite. They are the result of deliberate, steady, foundational iteration. When we start trying to outrun the physical world and instead secure our foundations and work alongside physics, the progress we make is actually permanent.
Compounding interest for humanity. So, to bring this entire journey full circle for you listening today, we started by looking at a world that is hitting the brakes.
Right.
We saw the physical limits of global energy colliding with the electrical demands of New York AI data centers. We watched massive institutions like ICE and the nation's largest school district hit pause because their human systems were fracturing under the pressure of pure speed.
We also confronted the paradox of modern digital life, recognizing that between sudden AI bans in China and the end of physical PlayStation discs, we are often merely renting the culture we dedicate our lives to building.
And yet, by looking backward, by fixing the 15-year-old ghost lock code, by modernizing the Cold War aerospace wiring, and by teaching literacy through art, we find the stability to create actual miracles. AI curing diseases in record time, entire aviation networks running on the sun, storks coming home.
The friction we feel right now isn't the enemy. The friction is what finally gives us the grip to steer.
The friction gives us the grip to steer. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to take with you today. We talked about digital artifacts, like that 15-year-old code flaw hiding silently in our critical systems, or 20 years of casual internet culture entirely reshaping how we process a World Cup match today.
Right.
It makes you wonder, what invisible habits, systems, or personal code are you creating in your own life right now? Will they become your most critical, life-saving infrastructure 20 years from now? Or will they become your biggest vulnerability? It's something worth thinking about the next time you feel the urge to just move fast and break things. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into today's sources. Stay curious, take a moment to check your foundations, and we will catch you next time.